I flew across the country to beat up my sister's abusive boyfriend. I, 21 years old, took a vacation to the Philippines to visit my grandparents. I planned on staying there for a month while my family is back home in the US. Before I left, my sister, 22 years old, started dating a guy named Alex she met at her local gym. She introduced him to my parents but didn't get approved because he was almost 35 years old and smelled like cigarettes and alcohol. The age gap was absolutely disgusting, especially since my sister was still in college. It didn't help that he told my parents that he worked at Waffle House and seemed to not care about his future or whatever happens in the next couple of years. My sister was blinded by love and ignored the red flags my parents and I saw. Fast forward to when I was already in the Philippines with my grandparents, until my mother started calling me on Facebook since I couldn't use my service there. She told me that she has been suspecting that my sister is being abused by her boyfriend because she would randomly see bruises on my sister's arm and sometimes near her neck. Whenever my mother would ask about her bruises, she would try to avoid the question and end up saying that she either bumped into a table or accidentally scratched it. But my mother told me that the bruises on her neck doesn't look like the bruises you would get from a scratch, but rather the bruises you'd get from a punch. I asked my mother if he told my dad, but my mother didn't want to tell him because she wasn't sure if it was actually true. Another week passed by, and my mother texted me on the Messenger app and told me that my sister came home crying last night and had a bruise on her left eye. My mom screamed at her and asked who hit her in the eye, and my sister admitted that it was her boyfriend. My sister started apologizing to my mom and told her that she should have listened to us and how she's scared of her life. I've never felt so angry in my life, and I decided to leave early to go back home to the US. I apologized to my grandparents, but they understood and told me to go back home as soon as possible to check on my sister. By the time I arrived home, my mom told my father about my sister's bruises and her now black eye. My father silently started walking towards his room to where I heard objects falling down from the distance. I walked inside and I saw him with a gun in his hand that I never knew he had. I grabbed my father's hand while he was holding his gun and told him that I get that he is angry, but both of us need to calm down and think before we do anything irrational that could worsen the situation. I called up 2 of my friends from my boxing gym and asked if they could do me a favor. I told them that they didn't have to do it, but I would appreciate it if they did. Both of them agreed, and they later came to my house an hour later. I told my father to stay with my sister and my friends, and I would handle the situation. I walked up to my sister and kneeled down while she was crying on the couch. I asked where Alex lived, and my sister ended up telling us where he lived.